Hello and welcome to this edition of Culture Mosaic. I hope that you are getting used to the heat of summer here in Vietnam. You can find your chill by sitting back and enjoying Culture Mosaic this week with us. In this week's edition, we will zoom in a bit closer to the architecture scene here in Vietnam. We'll take you to the mountains in the northern part of Vietnam to visit a school that is ranked as one of the 10 most impressive architecture projects in the world by the UK's Guardian magazine. Then we'll move to the south to see how the modernist architecture there has impressed an American architect. And last but not least, we'll move to a game with an origin from the West, but fused with Oriental civilization. So sit back and enjoy the experience we'll have together in the next 30 minutes. A beautiful school in the middle of Sơn La's mountains. Southern Vietnamese modernist architecture through the eyes of an American architect. Let's learn more about how a deck of cards with Western origin combined with emblems of Oriental civilization look like. We begin with some local news. When it comes to Áo Dài, we often think of graceful women in long dresses. And when we talk about dance sports, we think of vibrant and passionate dancing. So what would it be like if we combined Áo Dài and dance sport? Recently, dance sport champion Chí Anh and Áo Dài designer Đỗ Trịnh Hoài Nam teamed up to innovate and promote Áo Dài. Đỗ Trịnh Hoài Nam came up with the idea the program will have online sharing sessions about dance sport and Áo Dài, along with choreographed art performances. Promoting a new and dynamic image for Áo Dài will be done to celebrate the 90th anniversary of the establishment of the Vietnam Women's Union. Some good news for Vietnamese tourism. Sapa and Ninh Bình have recently been included in a list of the 14 most attractive destinations in Asia. The list was published by the travel journal Trips to Discover. The article introduced Sapa as a great place for walking, biking, and mountain climbing, along with stunning sights such as terraced fields, mountain villages, and traditional crafts. Ninh Bình attracts visitors with its beauty as an ancient land and features caves, temples, and ancient cultural relics. The Sa Vĩ Border Information Center in Móng Cái in the northern province of Quảng Ninh received the ASEAN Best Sustainable Urban Tourism Product Award at a ceremony on Saturday. Built in 2009 and completed in October 2013, the center in the Cha Co relic site spans a total area of 16,000 square meters. On July the 24th, 2019, the Cha Co relic site, along with the Sa Vĩ Border Information Center, was recognized by the Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism as a national tourist area. It's the first of its kind in Quảng Ninh and the fourth nationwide. The award was meant to honor and develop high-quality tourist products and services, and it's expected to improve the efficiency of Vietnam's tourism promotion. After more than 10 years in showbiz and developing her career as a professional singer, Hoàng Thùy Linh will return to the path that brought her into showbiz in the first place, acting, with a thriller titled Monster Heart, produced by WePro. Directed by Tạ Nguyên Hiệp, Monster Heart is a movie that WePro Entertainment and producer Nguyễn Quang Huy have been working on. After more than 2 years of production, Monster Heart is ready to hit the silver screen. The film is scheduled for release on October the 16th, 2020. After his hit from the first half of 2020 called Hơn Cả Yêu, singer Đức Phúc has moved on to acting with a new collaboration with YouTuber Hậu Hoàng. Đức Phúc is beloved by audiences for his naive and humorous performance on the Vietnamese game show Thank God You're Here and the role of the son of Bá Kiến in the MV Hết Thương Cạn Nhớ, but this is the first time he will act in a film project. What would you consider a beautiful structure? For people in the mountainous commune of Tu Nang, Sơn La province, the appearance of the Bó Mon kindergarten has drastically changed their lives. Not only do they love it, but even the UK's The Guardian also voted Bó Mon School as one of the 10 most impressive architectural projects in the world in 2020. Let's take a look at this building and learn what makes it so impressive in this week's culture and lifestyle.
From taking classes in corn warehouses like this, these days, preschool students in the 3 villages of Bó Mon, Cây Ton, and Cô Tông have been able to attend classes at a new school built by a charity group in collaboration with local authorities. This sturdy, beautiful, and comfortable building is not the only highlight of this project. Despite it being newly constructed, it isn't unfamiliar to students because the school's design was inspired by the traditional steel houses of locals, with spaces that are open and combined with natural environment in the mountain landscape.
Tôi thích sự bền bồng, chạm nhẹ trên mặt đất của kiến trúc, như là một cách biểu hiện phù hợp với khí hậu và thiên nhiên của vùng đất Sơn La.
Since Bó Mon students were transferred to this school, this place has seen a lot of changes. Not only have students become more diligent in class, but even parents are visiting more often.
Nhưng mà từ thời buổi mà có cái nhà mới này ấy, cái nhà mới này thì trừ mình ống đâu thì mình cũng không đánh, ví dụ qua nó mà hỏng hóc ở đâu thì tôi cũng sẽ bỏ cái cô, bảo là cái này hỏng rồi, cái cô sẽ cho người khác sửa, không muốn cho cái trường này phải hỏng. Thì lâu lắm là mới thấy một cái trường như thế này.
The people here love this new school because of their difficult economic conditions. Most people have to send their children to their grandparents and teachers as they work far from home.
Ở nơi khác thì có thể là ngôi trường thì là chỉ là ngôi trường đối với các con, nhưng ở trên này thì ngôi trường không chỉ đơn giản là ngôi trường đối với các con mà còn là ngôi nhà thứ hai. Bố mẹ các con đi làm rất là sáng sớm nên là mang con đến lớp thì là gửi gắm hết vào cô giáo, nên là có được cái ngôi trường như thế này, một cái ngôi trường mà từ đầu năm ấy thì cũng trải qua là 3-4 trận lốc xoáy, gió mưa đá đấy, thì là ngôi trường cũng vẫn là kiên cố, không có vấn đề gì xảy ra, nên là các bậc phụ huynh rất là yên tâm khi gửi gắm con đến với ngôi trường này. Các con cũng đến lớp thì hào hứng hơn, thích học hơn, và các con rất là thích thú khi được đến lớp mỗi ngày.
Since opening, the percentage of students attending school has consistently been high, which is a great achievement for the project. Not only has it been meaningful for locals, the student and 9 other works have been also voted by the UK's Guardian as part of the 10 most impressive architectural projects in the world in early 2020. In the Guardian article, it said, "It's a simple enough idea, a big distinctive roof that casts a big shadow that moves around during the course of the day, so the shadow becomes an animated thing in its own right, not just the absence of the sun. The curvy shapes might be said to have some harmony with the surrounding hills. A tree is hooked at the entrance. The corrugated metal construction is basic, with some sensible-looking devices to ensure ventilation."
Không gian với hàng hiên là một điều thú vị của kiến trúc miền nhiệt đới ẩm. Con người sẽ cảm thấy thoải mái giao tiếp bằng tất cả các giác quan của mình. Học tập và chơi đùa dưới bóng mát của hàng hiên sẽ giúp tâm hồn trẻ thơ được bay bổng.
It took 6 consecutive months to build the school. The most difficult part of the construction were transporting materials due to the mountainous terrain. The other difficulty was constructing soft parts with rigid materials.
Mỗi nơi chốn đều có một bối cảnh riêng và một tinh thần địa điểm riêng. Kiến trúc làm sao phải thể hiện được sự nhạy cảm của mình đối với những điều này.
Beaumont School is not just a school or a simple structure. It is a result of the passion of its designers and is a home and form of encouragement to students, bringing joy and countless laughter to the students and the people here.
Southern Vietnam is a center of modern architecture. That is the idea behind the book Southern Vietnamese Modernist Architecture by Mel Shank, an American architect who has over 43 years of experience in the field. What makes it more interesting is that he has not designed or made any works related to housing because his job is more related to managing larger construction projects rather than designing them. Despite this, Mel is very knowledgeable about modern architecture and is also the owner of a modernly designed house. Let's have a chat with Mel Shank and talk about the modern architecture of Vietnam in our On the Mic subsection this week.
The book Southern Vietnamese Modernist Architecture features beautiful architectural photography that illustrate the outstanding accomplishments of the people of Southern Vietnam in developing modernist architecture. Over the past 8 decades of architectural history, Southern Vietnamese architects have developed versions of modernist architecture that accommodated the tropical climate and reflected the identity and culture of a nation. The vast quantity and quality of Vietnamese modernist architecture constructed throughout southern Vietnam made it a center of modernisms in the world. Most importantly, because it suits Vietnamese identity so well, and southern Vietnamese, as the culture embraced modernisms, have made it become the vernacular architecture of the culture, especially for dwellings.
Hello, architect Mel Shank, and thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for coming out here.
What prompted you to compile such an extensive research into the modernist architecture in southern Vietnam?
I arrived here in 1971. I was here for a year to manage construction contracts to Vietnamese contractors. And I was shocked by the amount of modernist architecture I saw here in, of course it was called Saigon in those days. I had just graduated from architecture school in America, and there is not much modernist architecture in America. I was shocked to see that so much of the city was modernist. So I said, wow, how did this happen? You know, and I initially assumed, oh, the French must have built all this, but I quickly found out that's not true at all. So I resolved someday to come back.
What exactly is modernist architecture, and how did it come about in southern Vietnam?
Modernism represents a complete break from the past being an agricultural age, the age of classicism, classical architecture. And what happened over 3 or 4 centuries, from the 17th century on up, is that our knowledge of science increased and we developed new materials, especially steel and reinforced concrete. And what that allowed was that we could build frames upon which walls could be hung. The planning of the building could respond to the function of the building, whereas in a classical building you essentially have to stuff the functions in the building.
So why did the Vietnamese embrace modernism?
How modernism could be easily adapted to a tropical climate like Vietnam. So that was one thing, but they could also see that it could adapt to the Vietnamese identity.
So why do you think that southern Vietnam is a center of the world for modernist architecture?
I lived in a hotel off of what is now Nguyen Chai Street in District 1, and I walked down that street and it was 100% modernist shop houses. That quantity, which extended throughout the city, and in addition, from 1945 through 1975, every major building was Vietnamese modernist by Vietnamese architects. It was clear to me that Vietnam had become an unrecognized center of modernist architecture.
As a person with many years of experience in the field of architecture, Mel was very surprised when he came to Vietnam to work in 1971 to 1972 and realized that Vietnam has a lot of modernist architecture works that are highly quality. According to him, the golden age of Vietnamese modern architecture ranges from 1945 to 1975. During this period, Vietnamese architects sought inspirations from Vietnamese ancient architectural features.
So in this book, I can see that there are a lot of photos that you took of a lot of buildings here in Ho Chi Minh City, like mostly built in the 1950s, 1960s. So what have you done to compile such a huge database of the modernist architecture here?
Well, I captured a database of 400 buildings, shop houses, villas, as well as commercial and government buildings. And from those, I was able to do the analysis of features, architectural features. Well, when I came back here in 2005, I've been back here now since then, I was shocked to find that no Vietnamese architect or scholar had written about this period of architecture, and still haven't. It's out on my own. But rather than going to the archives, I don't speak Vietnamese well enough or read Vietnamese well enough to go to the archives. I don't speak French because there's a lot of archives available in Paris in French. So I realized I just had to walk around. So that's my research method, walking around, taking photographs, finding the really good pieces, analyzing what I'm seeing. What is it that made it Vietnamese? What is it that made it different from global modernist architecture?
So why should we need to understand more about modernist architecture in southern Vietnam?
Because it's heritage. It's heritage. Many of the buildings that we have portrayed in our book is a record of this accomplishment of the Vietnamese people, because a lot of it is now being torn down. Many of the buildings here are no longer here anymore. And buildings that aren't in here are continue to be torn down. So that's why this book, I think, is important to Vietnamese people to see. And when you walk around, you start to see things you didn't see before.
Mel Shank owns a modernist structure house called Bres House. For Mel, the house is a very special project. It is an experimental of what he learned at university. The design of Mel's Bres House has appeared in many architectural magazines, including Architect magazines and Arts Daily. This house is a modernist structure with an information age face. This is an experiment in expressing the atmospheriness, randomness, and dissonance of the information age. This subjective analysis is paired with rational decisions to reduce energy usage through natural ventilation.
So your own house is also a modernist architecture, but what's so different about it from other modernist architecture in the book that you published?
Yes, it's a modernist structure, but it's an information age face. We are moving now from modernism into the information age. What is the information age? Well, the analogy is to a network. A network is amorphous. You really can't tie it down. It's constantly changing, and it's random. So that randomness and amorphous is now starting to impact architecture.
So the most noticeable and characteristic of this residence is the facades. What can you tell me about that?
But I wanted my house to be an experiment in what I was thinking about in information age. So one of the characteristics of information age architecture is it's holistic. The network is holistic. So therefore you tend to focus on one material that expresses that. So the network of steel expresses that randomness, the amorphousness, and is a single material rising up through the house.
A constant breeze can be felt throughout your house. So what did you do to make it work?
So every cross wall in this house has louver windows that are almost always open, rarely get closed, that allow the hot air to rise and escape. So it's an old technique that we now need to relearn. And then with the security on the outside, then that I can keep them open all night with no problem at all.
So how does this house help reduce the energy usage?
It's hard to compare. I don't ask my neighbors what their usage is, but yes, definitely. And the less air conditioning you use, less electricity you're going to use, and also for lighting, because there's so much light that comes in through the house.
So after your house and your book, what's next?
Well, I'm writing another book, and this time it's about information age architecture, defining that, and then showing what the Vietnamese architects are doing that is leading the world in an information age for houses and small buildings like kindergartens and schools.
Well, thank you very much, architect Mel Shank, and good luck with your endeavors.
Yeah, and thank you very much for having me talk with you today.
Playing cards are typical features of Western culture. From ancient times to now, each card with its own patterns, like the K for king, the Q for queen, and the J for knight, has reflected the emblems from thousands of years of monarchies in Europe. But what if a deck of cards with Western origin is combined with emblems of Oriental civilization? Let's find out more about this creative idea of a young Vietnamese artist in our segment of Connecting Cultures this week.
These are the patterns printed on Western deck of cards. And this is the Ace of Spades, the King, Queen redesigned with Vietnamese ancient symbols, artworks of a young talented Vietnamese designer.
Ban đầu thì ý tưởng nó chỉ xuất phát là thiết kế bộ bài tay, nhưng mà chưa có biết là cái thâm ly của nó sẽ là về cái gì. Nên là sau thời gian tìm hiểu thì mình sẽ chọn cái văn hóa cổ xưa nhất của Việt Nam, đó là văn hóa về trống đồng Đông Sơn và văn hóa Lạc Việt.
Originally a graphic designer with a great passion for the mystery behind a deck of cards, Khanh came up with the idea of designing his own playing cards inspired by the patterns of Đông Sơn bronze drums from ancient Vietnamese culture, with the hope of spreading awareness about this ancient civilization to the rest of the world.
Khi mà bạn đi đâu, bạn sẽ nhìn thấy người ta sử dụng một bộ bài nó có văn hóa gì đó rất là không thuần Việt. Thấy tại sao mình không thiết kế ra một cái bộ bài dành riêng cho người Việt của mình sử dụng và mình có thể đưa ra nước ngoài luôn. Mình có nghiên cứu về văn hóa trống đồng, đặc biệt là văn hóa Lạc Việt. Thì trên văn hóa Lạc Việt sẽ có là trống đồng Đông Sơn và trống đồng Ngọc Lũ. Thì mình sẽ sử dụng hai cái trống đồng nó lại với nhau. Trên trống đồng Đông Sơn thì sẽ có những họa tiết mà trên trống đồng Ngọc Lũ không có. Lúc mà kết hợp lại với nhau là mình chỉ kết hợp những cái họa tiết đó lại, sắp xếp theo một cái trình tự. Từng họa tiết trên lá bài thì mặt trước của lá bài sẽ là những họa tiết như là hình vuông, hình tam giác, hình tròn, là những cái họa tiết mà bạn sẽ dễ nhận biết nhất ở trên trống đồng. Còn đi vào sâu bên trong sẽ là chim lạc, hu, cò, những cò lang, đặc biệt là chim lạc. Nó sẽ có 4 chim lạc nằm đằng sau, cái mặt sau của thiết kế. Nó sẽ xoay quanh cái trống đồng, bay quanh cái trống đồng theo chiều kim đồng hồ của mình.
Đông Sơn culture is one of the most ancient civilizations of the Vietnamese people, dating back over 3,000 years. The intricate handicraft designs on drums show a very high level of skill and art. The motifs depicting activities of the people in old times show aspects of Vietnamese legends and a glorious civilization. The most prominent symbol on the bronze drums is the multi-pointed star in the middle of the drum, which represents the sun god of the ancient Vietnamese. That is why the name of the deck is Corona, which means halo or ring of light around the sun or moon.
Mình mất khoảng 2 năm để hoàn thành thiết kế. Điểm đặc trưng nhất của bộ bài là hầu như là họa tiết mặt sau của thiết kế là sẽ giữ nguyên bản luôn. Mình chỉ thêm những họa tiết khác như là cái khung của lá bài, mấy họa tiết khác như là dấu gạch ngang, cái dấu chấm tròn để tạo ra cái sự tương phản về bố cục. Nó sẽ thể hiện văn hóa trống đồng, đặc biệt là văn hóa cổ xưa của Việt Nam. Thì mọi người sẽ nhìn vào và biết đây Việt Nam mình sẽ có một cái trống đồng. Thông điệp của mình là muốn truyền bá cái văn hóa cổ xưa đã thất lạc của Việt Nam. Tại vì hiện giờ rất là ít người tìm lại những cái gì văn hóa lúc trước, những cái truyền thống xa xưa của dân tộc.
The playing cards have 3 editions with a total of 1,000 decks each. The first 2 editions, named Helios, which consists of 2 white and black sets, representing day and night, and the Lua Yue version, which means Lạc Việt, preserves the original color and scratches of the drum. Everything is connected and stylized with a modern twist and a touch of sophistication. Since launching 2 months ago, all editions have sold out in websites worldwide.
Mình sẽ không in lại bộ này, tại vì bộ này chỉ giới hạn trong khoảng 1.000 bộ, 990 bộ thôi. Còn ý tưởng thiết kế về sau thì mình sẽ thiết kế thêm một bộ mới về các vị anh hùng dân tộc. Ví dụ như là những vị vua thời xưa có công với nước, những vị tướng có công với đất nước. Những người mà đã giữ lấy bờ cõi của đất nước Việt Nam mình sẽ đưa lên mặt thiết kế của bộ bài. Còn mặt sau thì mình chưa biết sẽ là sử dụng cái thùm mì gì vậy.
Each of Khang's decks not only reflect the entire history and culture of Vietnam, but also represent the relentless creativity of Vietnamese young people. This unique deck of cards is a combination of 2 civilizations, Western and Oriental. Thanks to young people with creativity and innovative ideas like Khang, Vietnamese traditional culture like Đông Sơn will never fall into oblivion.
And that is the end of our program. If you'd like to provide feedback or comment on anything here on Culture Mosaic, please feel free to write us at vtvinternational@vtv.vn. You can also log on to vtv4.vtv.vn or youtube.com/vtv4go for more of our program. And don't forget to join us next week for another episode of Culture Mosaic. Goodbye for now.